Hello and welcome to the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp Ryla, Rotary District 5810. I'm your host, Greg Tepper. Also the host, we go live to his house on tape. That doesn't make any sense. But let's go to the man they called Josey, Andrew Utz.
Well, thank you, Greg. Hello, Greg. Thank you. Hello.
This is definitely a podcast that I remembered to log in to record. Let the record show that I definitely remembered, and there's no one as I'm staring into my webcam. There's nobody's going to dispute that, right, Josey?
No one is going to dispute that. No, I'm still stuck over here wondering, because you said live and on tape, and to pull the curtain back, we've shifted mediums, so now we can see each other's live reaction, and I could see the wheels spinning of like live on tape. That's kind of contradictory, but is it? Because this has got to be taped somewhere.
It's recorded. It's recorded live, which is like a thing. Like it's recorded in front of like a live studio audience. Although there's not a live studio. We're each other's live studio audience. Which feels very intimate. Speaking of very intimate, I don't mean that. Speaking of very intimate, so Josey, you mentioned that we've now have the ability to see one another as we're recording this, because normally it had just been an audio only medium. But I feel like you and I really reached a new level of like intimacy in our friendship, in the sense that your background, you did the thing where it was like blurring the background, and
yes,
I more or less challenged you to turn off the blur, because now and now it's like the reason you were doing it was you thought that your office was messy. Is that right?
That's correct. It's a wide angle view of this camera.
Maybe I'm just a slob, man, because I just don't. I'm like, that just looks like an office. That's like a normal human office. What are you talking about?
I think it's a normal human office.
You're a normal human, and you have an office, so, and that's what it looks like. And then I gave you the nickel tour of my office, which is much more slovenly than yours. I have a whiteboard here that has things that have been written up there for, and not like long-term reminders, like things that were actively needing to be remembered 3 months ago. So it's going good in my office too.
It worked. I like that whiteboard a lot. That's a good looking whiteboard.
Thanks,
Clear
man.
board, I should say.
This is the RYLACast, the official podcast of Camp Ryla, Rotary District 5810. We do thank you for spending a little bit of your day with us. Coming up here in just a little bit, because Josey was off playing with the choo-choos, I conducted an interview, a big-time interview with Jason Jaggard. Jason Jaggard is the founder and CEO. Yeah, founder and CEO of Novus Global.
I totally knew.
You didn't know this
about this interview? No.
We are really good at this podcast planning thing. Yeah, I did an interview with Jason Jaggard and return RYLACast guest Becca Egger. So it's a twofer. And if you are unfamiliar with Jason Jaggard, he is the founder and CEO of Novus Global executive coaching firm, and he's the author of the new book Beyond High Performance: What Great Coaches Know About How the Best Get Better. We had a great conversation about that, and at the end, I invited him to camp. Tune in to see what he says.
Okay, I like that tease.
That is what we in the business call a vertical tease. But now, Josey, let's get into the heart of the RYLACast. And I sure hope you've got something, because I believe it was your turn to do the big segment. Again, we're real organized here, and I definitely remembered that we were doing this tonight. And here, with the first segment, take it away, Josey.
Well, thank you, Greg. And this might blow everyone's mind, but as I was preparing for the big segment, as I figured it was my turn, I was looking for articles to talk about, and I was searching like, what if you don't want to be a leader? Because I think that's a concept that's kind of like being in the world of like now and everything is at your fingertips and people are advancing through their careers. Maybe people just want to work and be really good at their job and not be leaders and managers.
That is interesting, because if you think about it, in pretty much every corporate world, like in order to move up, you have to be in charge of people, right? Like there's almost nowhere that you can move up like independent and just be like, oh, you just get to continue to work by yourself.
Exactly. So in this search, before we get into that, I came across a article from a coaching business that will not be named. And I thought to myself, you know what, if I'm going to get an article written by someone from a coaching business, I think it should be from Novus Global. I am not kidding you. I did not know who our guest was. I am not kidding you.
No, so Josey really did not know who the guest is. Like none of this is planned. I got to be honest, because we don't tell each other what the segments are going to be.
And I found a tangentially related article by none other than Jason Jaggard. Have you heard of him?
This is a shocking development. Yeah, I have heard of him. Spoke to him recently, actually.
And it's an article from May 2022 that says, "Are you coachable? The answer might surprise you." So now that the shock is wearing off about how our minds are intertwined from being many miles apart from each other, but we're one at the RYLACast here. Sure. And so the my thought modified of, maybe I need to be more positive and not like, what if you don't want to be a leader? And that turned out to my natural progression was, okay, are you coachable? And Jason's article, I'm a lot more nervous about paraphrasing Jason's article since he's our guest.
Oh, by the way, let me just make you even more nervous. He's definitely going to listen to this too. Hey, Jason.
100%. Hello, Jason. You'll find out why I wasn't present for the interview here. And the article, I highly recommend everybody go to read it at Novus Global. Are you coachable? Very easily searched, and that'll get you there. The article talks about one of Jason's favorite coaching stories about a man named Bill Campbell, who is often called the $1 trillion coach because he coached people such as Mark Zuckerberg, Steve Jobs, Eric Schmidt, who famously said everyone needs a coach. And Bill sat down with a young entrepreneur and asked him, do you think you're coachable? And that young entrepreneur replied, that depends on who the coach is, which is the wrong answer to that question. But the article goes on to basically say, describe the type of person that they think is coachable. And it's a scale of 1 to 10 and where you should fit on that scale in terms of, wanting to be coached. And I think that relates to the people that don't, in corporate America, I should say, that don't want to be managers of people. It's a fine line, right? Because you have these high performers that I think there's, high performers coaching model. There's a big parallel there. But I think there's a ceiling for some of these people that, I'm good at my job. I want to be recognized for what I do. And that reward to me is not great. Manage a team of people.
Yeah. And that, I don't know. I don't know that doesn't make somebody driven or that doesn't make somebody ambitious. I think that just, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too kind to those types of people, but like I feel like there is a certain, like, if your brain is wired in a certain way that you can find the lot in life that you're happy with, and that doesn't involve managing people, I don't think that's necessarily like a character flaw. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that.
No, I totally agree. Sorry if I was painting. No.
I think I was reaffirming your point.
Okay. Yes. No. Yeah. I agree that. I see that in the work that I do, and it's been more prevalent, I think, over the past couple of years. And I don't know why. I did a quick search to see if someone had done the studies. 9 out of 10 people want to be managers and whatnot, but couldn't find anything. But yeah, I don't think that makes anybody any less driven. I think that type of person is probably incredibly focused on what they want, to get out of life and what drives them on a day-to-day basis, which is admirable, I think. And also goes to show that there's, if whatever you want to do, there's a market for it, whether you want to be that manager of people, or if you're looking for a job and don't want to be the manager of people, there's a need for both kinds.
So this is a quick Google search, and this is from Fast Company. Fast Company, an article written in January 2022. According to a career builder survey of over 3,600 workers, that should be more than 3,600 workers, but most people don't want to be managers. Of the subset who are interested in rising to management, they make up slightly over 1/3 of organizations, 34%. So that means that, I'm doing some math, but 66% of people, 2/3 of them, don't want to be managers. So like, I don't know. And that's not to say that like that's good or that's bad. I don't think this is a value judgment on that. Mm-hmm. But I do think probably the people listening to this podcast, for the most part, would fall more into 34% than the 66%. My guess. But that's not always the case. Sometimes I think circumstances matter, and I think context matters, and I think there are certain circumstances in which we do want to be leaders, and certain circumstances where we do want to take a back seat. And I don't think that's necessary. I think it doesn't have to be this binary thing of you all either always are or you always aren't.
Right. No, that's a good point. And I think another way to look at that would be, if you are listening to this podcast and you're either a manager having trouble managing, or you're being managed, having issues with your manager, maybe you should ask yourself that question. Does that person in a managerial role want to be there? Mm-hmm. And maybe that influences their decision. And maybe, I don't know if that has an effect on it, but just trying to come up with a different way of looking at things.
That is interesting, because I do think that when I started kind of rising in my current employer, when I started rising and I got to be like in charge of people, I think I was kind of hesitant to do it. Not because I didn't think I could do it, but just because I didn't know if that was like my role, and that was like where I wanted to be. There's probably some deep psychological things that go on with that as well. But I do think that is also a role that you can grow into. I certainly feel like I've grown into that role now. Like I've been doing it for too long now, but that is really interesting about being coachable. I do think, though, I would say that regardless of whether or not you want to be in a management role or a leadership role, I do think that everyone can be, and if I may make a value judgment, should be coachable. I think coachability is a net positive attribute that we should aspire to.
Yes, I agree. And that, I think, in the biz is what we like to call a segue.
Oh, so now we're going to segue.
Did I end prematurely? I don't know. That was setting it up. That was setting it up real nice.
No, man, you hit it out of the park. So that was an article, great article by Jason Jaggard. Why don't we hear from him himself? We're so lucky to have an interview with Jason Jaggard. He is an executive coach, the founder and CEO of Novus Global executive coaching firm, and the author of Beyond High Performance: What Great Coaches Know About How the Best Get Better, and our friend Becca Egger. We hear from both of them coming up next here on the RYLACast. We're back here on the RYLACast, and we are pleased to bring in a very special guest. We are joined live on tape from New York, Jason Jaggard. Jason Jaggard is an executive coach, the founder and CEO of Novus Global Executive Coaching Firm, and the author of Beyond High Performance, What Great Coaches Know and How the Best Get Better. Jason, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Greg. Thanks for having me on the show. Us on the show. Thanks for having us on the show.
Yes, because there is an us. That is a plural, because we are also joined by a voice that people who listen to this podcast may know. It is our friend, Becca Egger. Hi, Becca.
Hey, Greg. How you doing? I'm
great. You don't mean that, though, because we just talk all the time. You know how I'm doing.
I'm glad to know, though, for sure.
Jason, I feel like people who are as accomplished as you are and kind of as high profile as you are, it can sometimes be intimidating. So let me just bring you down to ground zero here. How would you say you got here?
Like on this podcast? Or
or just here spiritually.
This is the summit of my whole career, this moment. When you said it's intimidating, I was like, yeah, it is intimidating because I'm intimidated to be here. You two are tour de force.
So how would you say, what was the journey that brought you to let's just say the place you are in your life doing what you're doing right now?
Well, so we have a podcast and we got to interview Ed Catmull a few months ago. He's the co-founder of Pixar. And he was fascinating. And he was talking about how his life works in stages, like 10-year stages. So the first 10 years was him figuring out the technology, him and his friends, to make the first animated film ever. And then the next 10 years was doing a few of those, like Bug's Life and Toy Story and Finding Nemo. And then the next 10 years after that was, can you create a culture that can do that rather than just, a couple people? And I would say a lot of our careers are that way. My guess is Becca's career is that way. My career is that way. And so the first 10 years of my career, I was actually a pastor in Los Angeles. It's an amazing community called Mosaic. We met in a nightclub. It was awesome. We met in one of the hottest Latino nightclubs in downtown Los Angeles. Loved it. And then I transitioned off the staff then 10 years ago to get into coaching and loved that. Loved doing the coaching thing, but also coaching can be a little solitary. Executive coaching can be solitary. Sport coaching, I feel like is, you got a head coach, assistant coach, and a whole team of coaches. But executive coaching can be really lonely. And so pretty quickly discovered that we could probably accomplish more with more people together as a team. And so started a firm about 10 years ago. And so now I spend most of my time, I only have a few clients now. I spend most of my time as a CEO working with amazing coaches like Becca, who's is part of our team, and she's incredible. And so we like bringing more people into the fold and helping them fall in love with this thing that we do.
What a segue. I'm glad you got the script. Because Becca, that brings me to you. I think people know you from the RYLA program. People know you from camp. But let me just ask you what you're doing here.
What if they don't know me? That's probably fair, but no. Yeah. So RYLA wise, right. Just like a little bit of context that I went to camp in 2004. Right. And so then have been, like no one succeeded in getting me kicked out since then. And so been committed to the process ever since. So that's been a couple decades almost at this point. So then that lit a fire in me, and this hunger and this, like, what does it look like if this 1 week of camp isn't just 1 week at camp, right? What if, and we do a lot of leadership and we do all this stuff that's transformative. And it's absolutely just part of the story of my life. And a few years ago, it's like, well, what if this isn't isolated to just this one magical place? Like, what if it's what if it's not magic? What if it's more science? What if it's relationships? What if this is something that could play out and I could help other people even, like almost input it into their own lives? And so roundabout, there's more to the story. I would love to go offline with anybody who's into the nitty gritty details, but found Novus Global through a really trusted friend and found so many similarities and so many through lines where I was like, this is trustworthy because it lines up with this experience I've been having for 2 decades, and that I've tested it and I know it's true and I know it works. And so sweet. Here's a team of people who are like putting this on in a different way. I want to be a part of it.
Jason, at Novus Global, you've trained dozens and dozens of people to go out and coach not just people, but like very high achieving people who are like stars, in their field. And I know that you can't train us in 10 minutes, but if you can, like, go for it. But could you tell us just maybe kind of a top level view, like the core values that you kind of insist is maybe too strong of a word, but that are extremely important when you are, coaching these coaches to go out there and do their thing?
Yeah, well, like most coaches who might be listening to this in football land know, you coach who you are. And so I think that's the biggest thing. I'll walk through some of the values we have, but the biggest thing is for people to internalize those values. And the more powerfully you internalize your values, the more powerfully you're going to transfer those to other people. So I remember like the coaches I had growing up. In fact, my dad was a high school football coach, basketball coach. He umped baseball and soccer, coached soccer for a long time. He actually started women's soccer in the tri-state area where I grew up. And so I grew up in a coach's family. And I know even now I'll meet people who come up to my dad and they're like, man, you coached me, it changed my life. And it wasn't necessarily anything he did, although he did things, but it was really who he was. And so in that sense, we create these values in our institute that help a person become a certain kind of person. And then they begin transferring that. We have tips and tactics, but we use an acronym called Go Live. And it's what's really important to us. And actually the book that you mentioned earlier walks through, the part 2 of the book walks through each of those letters and the acronyms that they represent. And so the G stands for growth, and just, whether it's Carol Dweck's growth mindset or just helping people become obsessed with the idea of growth and growing. The O stands for ownership, which is just a way of we have a saying, radical responsibility beats blame. Whether you're on the field or in the classroom or in leadership, no matter how old you are, we all have a tendency to want to blame people, and your life begins to move forward the second you stop with the blame. The L stands for love, which might sound a little weird because when we talk about love in the boardroom, that can be sounds scandalous. But we define love as fierce advocacy. And I think most coaches that I've had in my life definitely embodied that, where when my coaches looked at me when I was younger, they didn't see me for who I was. They saw me for who I could be. And even in ways that were uncomfortable and annoying and ways I wanted to get mad at them for, they saw the best in me and called that out and called me forward. The V, I believe that's where we are. No, whatever. I'm going out of order. The V is vision. And we have sayings like vision is a picture of the future of what could be and should be. And so most people create their future from their past, but we invite people to create their present from their future. And so it's a different tool there. And then I believe there's 2 more. Then E is energy. And we say, tend to the fire, bring the heat, and have fun. And so everyone has to take responsibility for their own energy and expanding that energy. And the last one is integrity. And we don't mean integrity like morality. We mean integrity like doing what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. And so if you can create cultures, if you can become the kind of person who does what they say they're going to do, who brings the energy, who's a fierce advocate, who deeply takes responsibility for their own lives, is obsessed with growth and has a vision of the future, that's a really powerful cocktail to begin investing in other people through the art of coaching.
I got to tell you that this is a personal note, but in talking with Becca, I'm just like, how did Becca's words get in your head? That's strange. I know it's almost certainly the other way around, but
it's vice versa.
Well,
yeah, I was going to say
we learn from everybody, and Becca is a fantastic person to learn from. And when she was in our institute, she was fantastic, and people really there's certain people that come into the program who instantly begin having a positive impact on others, and even start leading in ways. There's all sorts of ways in our firm people can start leading. And Becca was really leading and having an impact in our firm before we ever even invited her to join the firm. And so it's an honor to have her on this podcast with me, and also just to have her in our world.
Yeah, she is pretty cool. I'll agree with that. Okay. Jason, I do want to ask you, because, in the RYLA program, we work with high achieving teens and young adults. These are winners. These are stars.
Yeah.
And one of the things we hear so much, and I feel like we spend a lot of time as staff working with and working towards and working through, is dealing with anxiety and dealing with pressure and dealing with all of those things that mount on you when you are an achiever and the people around you know you're an achiever. And so I'm interested, from your perspective and your unique position, what kind of message you would have for those young men and women. We have our own messages, but what yours would be.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'll kick it to Becca. I'll give a short answer, and I'm curious what she would say, especially because she's in the trenches more with folks that age, I think. one is to say that there's one of the reasons why you're anxious, this to talk directly to you if you're listening to this. One of the reasons why you're anxious is because it's performance enhancing. Worry actually increases performance, and that's why you do it. And it usually works. The problem with that is there's massive costs to that. So there's lots of ways to have high energy. You can drink Red Bull, you can, I suppose do drugs or whatever. And those are all like really bad options. So anxiety's like that. It is a performance enhancing drug, but it's not sustainable and has massive costs to it. So the question becomes, how can I increase my performance without using anxiety? And the reality is peace is also a performance enhancing drug, but we don't believe that it is. And so part of this is like an act of faith. If you're listening to this, it's an act of faith to believe that you can actually increase your performance the more you have a value for peace. And in the book, we make a distinction between contentment and complacency. Some people think that people who are at peace are complacent and therefore they don't want to win. And it's actually the opposite is true. You want to be content, which is, I'm okay right now, whether I win or not. And so now let's go win. And it's really learning how to be okay, regardless of the outcome, and then fight like hell to get that outcome. Becca, do you have anything to add to that, or would you even go in a different direction?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was thinking of one thing when you started talking, got really caught up in what you were saying. So I'm just like, really, I believe it. And I'm absolutely, I would say yes. And in my experience with teenagers, anything that doesn't come naturally is something we almost like resist. And so anxiety comes naturally. So I'm going to embrace it and maybe even amplify it. Intentionally or unintentionally. And so just throwing out this idea, not only to teenagers, but the rest of us too. We are all new humans at the age we are in the experience, right? I've never been this age with this age children and this experience in my life, right? We're all new.
Yeah.
And so what does it look like to actively choose something that maybe doesn't come naturally? Like if peace isn't coming naturally, what does it look like to even just notice, hey, like, here's something that I can have for free. It's this anxiety or whatever. It, however, is coming at a huge cost. So what does it look like to actively choose something else? And what's the process look like to actively choose something else? Because it's not going to come naturally. Engaging with the process, knowing that it's going to take time. But then seeing the payoff and seeing that cost drop and seeing the payoff rise.
Yeah. And my guess is, great not to talk too much about this. One is to say, I'm an incredibly anxious person. I've been pretty neurotic my whole life. I used to, I do public speaking in some ways for a living now as I'm more forward facing as I go out and represent the firm. And I used to have panic attacks. There was one time, maybe 10, 12, 13 years ago where I had to cancel a speaking gig because I was going to pass out and all that kind of stuff. And so I get that journey of anxiety. And in some ways I feel I'm still on that journey. And I guess the one thing to say is, hey, look, the trick isn't necessarily to get the anxiety to go away. And the anxiety doesn't have to go away for you to be okay. And so you can have an okay life and still be pretty neurotic. I like my life, and I'm pretty neurotic. Yeah. So and I think that's one of the ways finding peace with your anxiety, I think is maybe a good place to start. And say, you don't have to make it go away. But there are tools to help, refine it. And I just got back from speaking in front of hundreds of people in Vegas yesterday. And it's a relief to know after years of practice, I got up and I wasn't nervous at all. And I had a blast. And to have the freedom to create from a place of confidence versus a place of anxiety is something that I've worked on. And if I can do it, certainly the people in your environment can do it too.
It's so interesting, and I'll share a quick story. When we were at camp this past year, I gave an address at one point, a speech, and you're a guy who speaks in public. You script it out, you plan out what you're going to say. You never really know how they're going to react. You got to be a little nimble.
That's right.
And one thing that surprised me was I was talking through and I was saying, let's talk about what everyone in this room has in common. And I just brought up the example. I said, you guys are the people that when you have a group project at school, you're the one who's doing most of the work. And that was like an applause line.
Oh, that's great.
Like out of nowhere.
Flipped.
I'm like, oh, wow.
They were like, I am seen.
Did I hit a bingo? It was so strange, but I think that does speak to these, the expectations they put on themselves. I think in many respects, these expectations that we have from the outside, these external expectations that we feel. And I know that's something I think you're going to, spoiler alert to anybody who's younger, you're going to deal with the rest of your life.
That's
but
right.
there are tools and there's ways to deal with that to that they can manifest themselves in a positive way.
That's right. And it is, I think I would always say, I have some gifted people in my family. I am not gifted, but I have gifted people in my family who have really loved your camp when they were younger, I think. And I call it the curse of the gifted. Everyone wishes they were gifted, but then when you have that special touch where everyone looks to you in those moments, that there's a burden that comes to that. And I want to tell you again, if you're listening to this, the object of the game is not to get the burden to go away. From my opinion, the object of the game is to learn how to wear the burden well. And man, I'm glad that people look to you when in those moments. I know it's a pain. I know it's frustrating or whatever, but if you lean into it and learn to see it as a really beautiful thing, then you can learn to steward it and make it a gift to other people. And I know I believe in you. You can do it.
I might push back a little bit on a little bit of that angle, because I think that you do a really neat, humble thing where sometimes you count yourself out of excellence. And I wonder I think that that's probably really useful in a lot of situations. And in this situation, I want to say though, like we come to camp and there are kids who like, they've been selected as leaders, right? They had to interview, they had to come. And then there are kids who are counting themselves out though. They're like, I conned someone into getting here, or like I got to come because my older sister came years ago, or whatever it is. I'm not special. And one of my favorite, and I would love to hear you speak to this. One of my favorite things is that, like, I think generally speaking, we all come to this realization of like, but do you want to be? Because you're a human and you have the capacity to be like extraordinarily more than you think you could be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, what do you want me to speak to? Because I think you just said a nice little thing there.
Well, there you go. There you go. So back at you. Do you receive it?
Cross stitch down a throw pillow. Okay. Becca, RYLA for you came before Novus Global, but like you mentioned a little bit about that path. Now that you are kind of immersed in both of them, and the work you do as an executive coach, I'm interested in kind of the connections you see, the work we do with the program throughout the course of the year, as well as the work you do and the work you do with Novus Global.
Yeah. Okay. So love is fierce advocacy, right? That's one of my favorites. There's like that. I don't. If I got a dime for every time I said that at camp this year, I could have gone to the snack hut that doesn't exist. But so here's me showing up in one of the ways that I would love to show up in love for our community, our RYLA community. I think that we can, as humans, have a tendency to have a transformational experience, like going to a summer camp, or, name any other thing, right? Like the ball game that you win at the buzzer, or like when your child is born, or whatever it is, this transformational experience, and then almost walk away from it and put glass over it and be like, look, I'm going to come back and visit this museum. This was special. And I want to keep it safe, and I want to keep it holy. And this is a thing that maybe I could come get some energy from. I'd come and look at it and get inspired, whatever. And especially something like we do, like a summer camp, and we have other programming too, right? That we do throughout the year. But our big thing is this camp that we put on. I think that we can, not always, but I can have the tendency to put it as this museum piece that's like, when I was 17, this changed my life. And so I get to come back and look at it every year and like get a hit off of it, almost like that drug. I'm really mixing my metaphors here. This is a psychedelic museum. And,
cool museum. Wow.
It's so I was talking to Josey after camp, and I was like, I wonder where we're always like, here's also our thing as Rylarians, right? Is we're always like, here's 78 ways to level up. But here's one of them is I was like, do we have a charge? Like that, where we're saying, like, where's the call to action saying, like, and now what? How is this transformational experience going to be something that like it's not a museum article behind a piece of glass. This is something that I'm going to wear out. I'm going to wear holes in. I am going to sweat through it. And I'm going to make this transformational experience become this jumping off point or this jet fuel or whatever it is. So that whenever I come back again next year, I am not the same person. because I've worn it out in the meantime. And so so all that to say, in our work in Novus, that's what we're doing daily, is whenever we're working with our clients, as coaches, we're saying like, and now what? What do you like? How are we continuing to grow? How are we continuing to stretch and like sweat through these experiences that we've had? And so, bringing these two together makes a lot of sense for me, but also I'm like, I want to bring this together in front of our RYLAC community and say, what, and now what? How is Becca living her life daily different because of this experience? How is Greg living his life daily because of this experience? And like, literally, prove it. Where's the data? Where's the growth? What's happening because of this?
Yeah, sometimes I would say, when I'd speak in the past, I would say, how do you take things that are a glimpse of life and make it a lifestyle? And if your camp is anything like the ones I grew up in, I'm sure actually yours is a lot better, but I was profoundly, as nominal maybe as my camp experiences were, they changed my life. My camp experiences changed my life. And so it was a glimpse of life. It was like this high octane concentrate moment. And then, Becca, to your point, how do you then create the habits that make it that take it from a glimpse of life to a lifestyle?
Jason, you recently put out the book Beyond High Performance: What Great Coaches Know and How the Best Get Better. So you're an author. Congratulations on the book. I know
thank you.
That's not easy. I'm a writer. That stinks.
It's a lift,
can stink sometimes.
Best-selling author.
Best-selling author. Well, there you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It depends on when we'll find out. I don't know when you're going to drop this, but we'll find out if we are Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling books, a book next week. So we'll keep you posted.
I will edit it to make sure that no matter it's updated, but don't worry. I'm just going to say best-selling because it's easier. Best-selling author.
Yeah,
Beyond Hub. Here's a vague question, purposefully vague. Why this book and why now?
Oh man. Well, there's so many things that we packed into the book that I personally really, really care about. And also, because I know you write as well, I heard maybe it was Malcolm Gladwell, somebody like who's written, multiple New York Times bestsellers, said it takes like a year or two to figure out what your book is about after it comes out. That was really interesting.
Yeah, I can feel that right now.
Yeah, right. Because exactly. You put all this work and energy into it, and in some ways, because you don't really get to decide what it's about. Like in some ways, the readers get to decide what it's about, and you have no idea how it's going to live. And it's like a piece of art. Like this weekend, Barbie and Oppenheimer are coming out, and the whole world's going to decide what those movies are about after Greta and Chris, put all that energy into making them. So the reason why I mentioned that is I'm discovering the more I get away from the book, the things that I really care about is how do you become an extraordinary person in the context of community. And so those two things, I love teams. Probably two of the things I love more than anything is the pursuing greatness, pursuing having a positive world-changing impact in the world. I used to be a professor at Pepperdine University, and we're working with these amazing, bright, come from affluent homes, just incredible kids in Pepperdine in Malibu, California, and just seeing them for who they are, seeing all their talent, seeing all their capabilities, and wanting to do everything I can to help them explore that. And then also, my whole life I've been raised in whether it's faith communities or really fantastic schools or playing sports or whatever, and realizing that you cannot become an extraordinary person on your own. The road to the extraordinary has to be traveled with others. And so we wrote this book to inspire people. If you're a young person listening to this, oh man, like if you can get hooked on the drug of wanting to do something really meaningful with your life, and if you can get hooked on the parallel drug of, and don't you dare do it by yourself, like just get as many people as you can to go with you, then I will consider the book a really great success. And everything else is window dressing. Everything else, is a bonus.
One last question for Jason Jaggard of Novus Global, and I want to be very clear before I get going that I am not authorized for this. So this is
What's gonna happen?
Yeah,
this is great.
I'm not authorized to do this. However, I'll just ask you on a public record: do you want to come to camp next year? Like we've got cabins. Man. Do you want to? I mean, it's I feel like saying it's hot and sweaty in the middle of Memorial Day weekend.
Just ask him.
Sorry. Yeah. You want to come to camp next year? Hard stuff.
I love camp. Let's talk. Let's see what we can do. I would love. And here's the thing. So Greg, I would love to come. And can I bring some friends? And then we could just really do what we can to love and to serve these amazing people that you've recruited to be a part of your experience.
Again, can't stress enough. Not authorized to.
Becca says yes.
To make it. Okay, Becca's okay. Well, Becca's more powerful than I am.
And then I said yes.
So that's 2 yeses. He's Jason Jaggard. He is with Novus Global and the author of Beyond High Performance: What Great Coaches Know and How the Best Get Better. And our friend Becca Egger. Guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us.
Ooh, hey, Greg, thanks so much. Greg. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I love your radio voice. It's so good.
There is Jason Jaggard. Find his book on all the platforms. Amazon is where I found it. Beyond High Performance: What Great Coaches Know About How the Best Get Better. That is a smart fella and a smart lady fellow as well in Becca Egger, who joined us there as well to kind of give us some RYLA context. I know she's been working with Novus Global for some time now, and an inspiring guy there, Jason Jaggard, smart guy. And I would implore you to go check out the rest of his stuff. In preparation for that interview, I watched probably an embarrassing amount of Jason Jaggard on YouTube. So I would encourage you to go do the same. Go watch a lot of his stuff on YouTube. And now it's time we're going to bring this thing home. I think it's my turn, right? I take this final segment.
It was. I was thinking, does Greg watch an embarrassing amount of YouTube outside of preparing for the RYLACast? But I didn't voice that question. What's your media
I think
of choice?
I think I probably watch. I mean, it depends on your generation. I'm an old man, and so by old man standards, I probably watch more than the average bear. But by teen standards, I probably watch less than the average bear. That's probably where I fall. But I want to say, let me just say for the record, I don't know if I've ever said this on this podcast, but I respect and fear the teens. I do respect and fear the teens. My one goal in life is to not get roasted by the teens, because I don't know if I can come back from that.
That's a good goal.
Do you think I wear the sneakers that I wear because they're comfortable? No, I do it so that I hopefully don't get water those. I don't want to get water those. That's my biggest fear. And I like telling my biggest fear to a huge audience. Anyway, let's bring this bad boy home here on the RYLACast. And Josey, last time, this is going to sound like I'm anti-work and let's have a conversation. But I know last time on the podcast, I talked about the power of not giving 100%, right?
Yes, 85%.
85%. Well, now, Josey, I want to talk about taking breaks at work.
I'm listening.
Okay. So here I'm really into work-life balance right now. And I want to talk a little bit about the amount of breaks that you take at work. And there have been a number of studies that will tell you that if you are working on a project, if you're working at your job, if you're working in a group, if you're working on one singular goal, that sitting there and doing nothing but working on that is going to lead to poorer outcomes. It's kind of like what we talked about last time about if you give 100% all the time, you're going to get burnt out. That's just the way that it works. You need to dial it back. There have been multiple studies that have said that if you go, if you do nothing but sit there and work, in the end, that is going to be a worse product than what you would do if you were to take breaks. And so the rule of thumb, the research would show that you need to take there's no one kind of overall finding, but generally speaking, they say that you need to take a short break, 5 to 10 minutes or so, every hour, and then you need to take a longer break, maybe 30 minutes or so, every 2 to 4 hours. Okay, that's as close to a consensus on the studies that you can find. However, I want to go a step further. And I want to introduce you to something I read from Ness Labs, Nesslabs, Ness Labs. And they have an article about structured distraction. Okay. Structured distraction. Because if you're taking a break, let's say you work in an office. You work in an office, you're taking a break every a 5-minute break every hour, as recommended by these multiple studies. Well, you don't just go and just stare out the window. You don't just go stand by the water cooler. To get the most out of your breaks at work, you need to vary the kind of things that you're doing. Specifically, they break it into 5 different categories. Okay. You need to do, so one type of break, the movement break. Okay. Get up and move, go for a walk around the building, go walk up the stairs. Just get up, do some jumping jacks, some short, intense exercise. I remember at one point we were doing I want to say we were at RYLA Winter Summit, and like in lieu of calisthenics, we did like it was like do 10 of something, like, whether it's push-ups, whether it's jumping jacks, whether it's something like that. I find that to be particularly appealing, and I like to do that at work. But I'll get up and I'll just our building is it's 1,000,000 degrees outside, so I don't do it right now. But like our building is relatively small, so I don't mind taking a lap. That takes me about 5 minutes. It's a good way to clear your brain. That's one.
Okay.
A mental break. Okay. That doesn't just mean like flipping on YouTube or watching something mindless or something like that. Although, hey, go for it. But maybe do like a breathing exercise. There are plenty of those. There's free ones all over the place. Do a breathing exercise or a short meditation, or you can just let your mind wander. Did you know that scientists have proven that daydreaming has a positive impact on like your mental acuity?
I did not know that.
Daydreamers have greater cognition. That is something that has been proven according to Science Magazine, and they wouldn't call it Science Magazine if it didn't have science in it. Number 3, a social break. So this would probably be going to the water cooler, talking to somebody, going and bothering somebody else, right? Going and just having a conversation, or maybe even just like giving somebody a call or sending somebody a text, or just being social to get that part of your brain fired up. So there's that. The 4th one is a nature break. Okay. If you're inside the whole time, go outside. Like vitamin D is a powerful thing. Go outside. Find a way to get outside. Nature has a positive impact on your mental health. Find a dog and pet it. Just like pet a dog.
Okay. Nature. Go pet a dog. Did you know, this is another thing. Did you know that also according to Science Magazine, that research has shown that your oxytocin levels increase when you look into a pet's eyes. Okay. Oxytocin is known as the cuddle drug because when two people are bonding emotionally, it's what gets released. And you get that same thing if you look into a pet's eyes. So find a dog and pet it. Find a dog and stare into its eyes.
Get it. Have a dog handy. Okay. Have a dog around. And finally, the last one is a creative break. Okay. Listen to music, draw, doodle, like write something. If you can't leave your desk, I think if you can't leave your desk, that's a good way to like disconnect for a minute, is to just like get out and just doodle, or like draw something, draw a tree, draw like a stick figure or something like that. But that type of thing, or just pop on some music if you can. So there you go. Take more breaks at work. Okay. Take more breaks in whatever you're doing. Okay. 5 minutes every hour, half an hour every 2 to 4 hours. Right. And vary it up. Don't just get up and walk and get another cup of coffee. Like, do something different with your break. Let's practice structured distraction. That's my challenge for this week.
Well, thanks, Craig. That's really great. And that I work in an office, several floors up in a high rise. So I was feeling called out by that, because my breaks, look what I do. my breaks every hour consist of me walking down the hall and using the restroom, and then avoiding social situations with others in my office.
Josey, you got
which
go.
I'm really only doing 1 out of the 5.
So okay, so you are on you're in a multiple. You're in a high-rise building, and there are multiple floors. Do you just not want to get in the elevator?
Okay, so and this is I need to go reread this article and have it speak to me, because we're still in a hybrid situation. So I'm in the office a couple days a week, home a couple other days a week. So my brain has been programmed to, if I'm in the office, I'm squeezing every minute I'm in the office working, which is in direct violation of the article that you just shared with us.
No.
So if I take the elevator and walk around outside, get some vitamin D, several dogs around downtown.
There's you go, dude. Find a dog. Make friends with a dog.
I know. We're like a block or two away from Clyde Warren Park, which feels
That's my
like
challenge to you. Okay, I'm gonna write this down, because we're doing the next podcast in a couple of weeks. I think we're doing the next podcast we're recording it on August 8th. So I just give everybody our production schedule. I need you to tell me the name of a dog that you met at work.
Oh
next
man.
Time,
okay.
Next time that and I'll know if you're making it up. I'll know.
You will.
You need to tell me about a dog that you met at work. Okay.
Okay.
The challenge for you.
Okay.
And everybody call out Josey.
Clean. I'm going to come clean. A coworker listens to this podcast, and she has a dog named Winnie. So if I come back
Winnie.
in 2 weeks and the dog's Winnie, I've lied. Right?
I'm writing that down. Can't be Winnie. This is not fair to Winnie. Winnie, I'm sure you're wonderful, but I'm writing down Winnie, and then I'm circling it and crossing it out. It can't be Winnie. Can't be Winnie. You need to go meet a new dog. Okay. And that is going to do it for the RYLACast. We do appreciate your time. Thanks again to Jason Jaggard and Becca Egger for being our guest. Did you know, by the way, Josey, I was looking at this the other day. Do you know that nobody has left us a review on iTunes since December 3rd, 2019?
It's been a very long time. When I'm feeling down, I like to look at the reviews because they're positive.
I'm calling out our listeners. Okay. I'm calling out. This is a challenge for you listeners. You need to go leave a review. Somebody needs to leave a review. We cannot have the latest review of a podcast that we've been pretty diligent about doing for the last year or so.
That is true. We've been really good.
It be 4 years old. So please go and leave a review on the podcast vendor of your choice. Rate and subscribe and tell a friend. And here with an antiquated way to tell a friend about the RYLACast is Josey.
Yes, thank you, Greg. So in honor of me going to find man's best friend in the next 2 weeks, those cool I don't know what the correct term is. Becca's probably like punching her steering wheel right now, but it's like a long shot when you get it's a type of photographic shot.
Like a lens?
It's like long exposure or whatever. And somebody's like taking like a glow stick and writing a letter, and then you take a picture. Yeah, it looks like the letter, you do the little design.
In your defense, I don't know what that's called either. So she can yell at me too.
It's very antiquated, right? Yes. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree.
So go ahead and
it's like whenever you're taking a photo in like the 1850s and you had to sit still for 30 minutes.
Exactly. Go ahead and say, listen to the RYLACast in successive pictures. And then as you're walking your dog, go ahead and paste that picture up on a nice street lamp. Okay. And that'll alert everyone to listen to the RYLACast.
I like that a lot. Thanks, Josey. And thanks for listening. Josey, thanks for your courage.
Thanks, Greg.
Talk to you next time on the RYLACast.